Hello everyone, welcome to the 6th GCSE Chemistry lesson. Today's learning question is, what are compounds and how do we name them? So we're going to be looking at compounds and the difference between elements, compounds and mixtures, and then we're going to look at how we name compounds, so how we come up with the name and the formula for them. So if you'd like to pause the video and just write down the learning question and have a look at the do it now. So the do it now is, what is the difference between the ones on the left and the ones on the right? Okay, so what's the difference between the picture on the left and the part of the picture on the right? Well done. So hopefully you've got the learning question down. You're all ready to learn with your notepad and your pen or pencil. So looking at this picture then, you can see here on the left, these atoms, although there are bonds here, the same type of atom is bonded together. Okay, so this is what we call an element. These are elements. Although there are some bonds here, it's just the same type of atom bonded together. Whereas here on the right-hand side, we've got different types of atoms chemically bonded together. So that's when we come to look at what a compound is. that's what a compound is, different types of atom chemically bonded together. So firstly, I'm going to go through some definitions with you. And if you'd like to write some notes and draw out these pictures, then that would be great. So just pause the video whenever you need to, so that you can write any notes down for yourself. So an atom is the smallest particle of matter. Okay, so it's the smallest piece of an element that keeps its chemical properties. So atoms can be different sizes. We know that from the periodic table. So remember, when we looked at the periodic table, we know that each different type of atom has got a different proton number, so different number of protons, different number of neutrons and electrons. Okay, so they're different sizes. And remember, as you go down the periodic table, the atoms get larger, don't they? Atoms will have, depending on how many electrons they have in their outer shell, they have different properties. And in chemical reactions, atoms can't be made or destroyed. All right, they can only they can transfer electrons, but the atoms themselves aren't made or destroyed. They can't split apart. They are the smallest particle of matter, so they cannot be split apart. Okay, so that's an atom. A molecule is a small particle which is made when one or more atoms bond together. Now, molecules can be of the same element, so they can be two of the same type of atom bonded together, or they can be a molecule of a compound. All right, a molecule is just a group of atoms bonded together. So it doesn't matter if the atoms are the same or not, they can make a molecule. Okay, an element is a substance which is made up of just one type of atom. Now, these can be solids, liquids, or gases. The really important thing to remember is that an element is just made up of one type of atom. Okay, so here we've got a diagram of a solid element. You can see all of these types of atoms are the same. And this is a gas element. You can see here all the atoms are the same type. Okay, a compound, so this is what we're going to be looking at specifically in this lesson. A compound is a substance that's made from two or more different types of element, different types of atom chemically bonded together. All right, so here you can see a solid compound. We've got two different types of atom in this compound, okay, in this solid. That's what makes it a compound, two or more different types of atoms. And here is a gas compound, two or more different types of atoms. Now, the key part to remember is that the different types of atoms are chemically bonded together, so we can't just separate them out through a physical process. Okay, they've got chemical bonds holding them together. Okay, and some common examples. A common example here: hydrogen and oxygen. They're elements. They can react together, they can chemically bond together to form water, which is a compound. Okay, and finally, a mixture. This is the other term you might have heard of. A mixture is two or more different types of atom. So it could be different types of elements or compounds, but they're not joined together. They're not chemically joined together. They could be a mixture of compounds, though, which themselves are joined together. So here we can see we've got a mixture of compounds and elements here. So that's like air. Air is a mixture of compounds and elements. Some of them are joined in compounds, but as the mixture, they're not chemically joined together. Okay, so if you're writing notes, you can pause now and write down. A mixture is when you combine two substances in a way that no chemical reactions occur. Okay, so you can separate them out again. That's the key point here. So what I would like you to do is pause the video and, without using your notes, draw yourself an illustration of an element, a compound and a mixture, and give an example of all three. Okay, so if you can pause the video and do that now. Well done. So here's what I found. So here's my element. You can see it's just the same, all the same type of atom, and my example was carbon. I just picked one from the periodic table. Here's a compound, two or more different types of atoms chemically bonded together. My example was carbon dioxide. And here's my mixture, two or more different types of atom or compounds, element or compounds, not chemically joined together. My example there, the easiest example to think of is air. Well done. Now what I would like you to do is match the words here with the definitions and with the little illustration example. Okay, so if you can match those up. So pause the video, match up the word to the definition and then to the pictures that illustrate the words. Okay, so if you can pause the video and do that, that'll take you probably about 5 minutes or so, but well worth doing just to help your understanding. Brilliant, well done. So here we've got element, a substance made from only one type of atom, and these are the pictures of the element here. A molecule, two or more atoms chemically joined, got two molecules there. A compound, two or more different atoms chemically joined together. Got the picture of two compounds here. Remember the difference between the molecule, it doesn't matter if it's the same type of atom or not, it's just molecule means any chemically joined atoms, whereas a compound is two or more different types of atom chemically joined together. So you can see here that these are both different types of atom. And a mixture, different elements, molecules or compounds, not chemically joined together. So these are the mixtures here. Okay, so if you need to pause again, just to finish off those notes, those definitions matched up correctly, and then do that now. Okay, well done. So this is water. So you'll recognise this picture from the first slide of this lesson. So this is water. It's a compound made up of one oxygen atom, as you can see here, and two hydrogen atoms, and they are chemically bonded together, and that's what makes the compound water. This is an example of a molecule of oxygen. So oxygen, it is a molecule because there are two oxygen atoms bonded together. Okay, we call this molecule diatomic. It's when two atoms bond together and the element exists as two atoms bonded together. Okay, and hydrogen, which is here, these are the hydrogen molecules, and oxygen, this oxygen molecule here, they bond together. What happens during this chemical reaction is the bonds break and the atoms like move in composition and they rejoin to form the compound water. Okay, so moving on then to naming compounds. Okay, so we're going to look at when chemical reactions happen and we get compounds, we are going to look at how we come up with their names. So when non-metals form a compound, so when two non-metals react together, the end of their name changes to "ide." For example, sodium and chlorine react together to form sodium chloride. So you put the two names of the two elements together and you end it in "ide." So when there's two non-metals that forming a compound, their name ends in "ide." So can you have a guess of what you get when you react sodium and fluorine, magnesium and chlorine, and lithium and bromine? Okay, so just pause the video, write out your guess for those three compounds. Well done. So using the rules, sodium and fluorine both will react together to make sodium fluoride. And magnesium and chlorine will make magnesium chloride. And lithium and bromine will make lithium bromide. Okay, so as long as one of them is a non-metal, there are two elements that are joining together, it always ends in "ide. Okay. When oxygen reacts with other elements, it becomes an oxide. All right, so we've still got that "ide" because there are two elements joining together. If one of them is oxygen, it becomes oxide. Okay, so for example, when magnesium and oxygen join together, here we go, we've got magnesium and oxygen joining together, we get magnesium oxide. Okay, so can you have a guess then what the compound names would be, knowing that rule, if you react calcium and oxygen, copper and oxygen, and iron and oxygen? So write down your guesses now. Well done. So calcium and oxygen make calcium oxide. Remember, because there are two elements, one of them is oxygen, so calcium oxide. Copper and oxygen makes copper oxide, and iron and oxygen makes iron oxide. So when oxygen reacts with another element, so there are two elements reacting, one of them is oxygen, makes an oxide. So I've placed a little challenge in here describing the difference between carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. What do you think the difference is? So they're slightly different names, carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. What do you think the difference might be? So carbon monoxide is when one oxygen atom reacts with one carbon atom. There you go, carbon monoxide. And carbon dioxide is when two oxygen atoms react with one carbon atom. Here we go, we've got the two oxygen atoms and the one carbon atom. That makes carbon dioxide. Okay, the last rule, this last compound rule that we need to know is when three elements react together and one of them is oxygen, the end changes to 8. All right, so three elements, but one of them is oxygen, it always ends in an 8 sound. So for example, if you react copper, sulfur and oxygen together, you get copper sul, so copper from the copper, sul from the sulfur, and 8 because it is combining oxygen as well. So you get copper sulfate. Okay, so can you pause the video now and have a guess at the name of the compound formed in these three reactions? Well done. So iron, sulfur and oxygen is iron sulfate. Magnesium, sulfur and oxygen is magnesium sulfate. And potassium, sulfur and oxygen is potassium sulfate. Well done. Well done if you got those right. As long as you remember those rules, that's all there is to naming compounds. And in exams, students get really panicked when there's a naming compound question, and they often just skip past it, just thinking, I don't understand this part, I don't understand chemistry, I don't understand this. But actually, there's 3 rules. There's only 3 bits that you need to remember to naming compounds, and you've done all 3 of them now, so you can do it. Okay, just very quickly then, we're almost at the end of the lesson. We're just going to look at looking at chemical formula. So these are the chemical formula for some compounds, and we're going to look at how we can look at chemical formula and identify the elements that are in the compound. For example, carbon dioxide contains carbon, so we can see from that C here, and oxygen, we can see from the O there. Okay, so what I would like you to do is pause the video and try and identify which elements are in these compounds. And then what you might need to do is use Google to find a periodic table, because you might not know some of the names. Na is a little bit tricky, it's sodium. Okay, S is sulfur. But if you need a periodic table, then you might need to find one. Okay, so can you identify the elements that are in these compounds? Well done. So this here, you might recognise it as water. It's got hydrogen and oxygen. This is carbon monoxide. It's got carbon and oxygen. This is sodium chloride. It's got sodium, that's the Na. It's got chlorine, that's the Cl. This is magnesium chloride. It's got the magnesium, which is this Mg part, and the chlorine, which is this Cl part. And this is hydrogen sulfate. It's got hydrogen here, this H, sulfur here, this S, and oxygen is the O here. Okay, so you can tell which elements are in a compound by finding the chemical symbols for the elements. Okay, here is a summary table that I've got for you. Now it's up to you if you want to pause the video and write out this summary table to have for your notes. So you've got the names of some compounds here, you've got the formula here, you've got the elements that are present there, and you've got the ratio of atoms there. Okay, so that's just bringing together kind of what we've learned today. Okay, so if you'd like to write that out as notes, then you're free to pause the video and do that now. Stick with us though, because there's a question that I need you to answer coming up, so don't end the lesson now, keep with us. So here are your exam questions for this lesson. So you can pause the video and have a go at them, and what I would love for you to do is submit them to Shobi so that myself or another science teacher can mark them for you. Okay, so there are 5 questions, and the number of marks you can see are here in brackets. Okay, so that's the number of points you kind of need to make. So if you can pause the video, have a look at those. I'm also going to put these on class charts, and they will also be on Shobi, set as an assignment. So these are the questions for this week for chemistry that you need to answer. Okay, so I'll say bye-bye now. Hope you enjoy the week. There's still some more sunshine, so I know it'll be really tempting to just sit outside all day or play outside, but please try and complete your 3 to 4 hours of science for this week. All right, any questions, email me or another science teacher, and then if not, I will see you next week. Well done, guys.